Maria Crofas. She's in Barcelona. She works for Nestle, and she's going to share her experience of how they developed a chatbot for Nestle. It's one of the presentations that we're really looking forward to.
Thank you, and nice. Thanks for having me here. I'm super excited to share with you what we do at Nestle. So I'm just going to share the screen. Hopefully you can see it. Thanks for being here today. So my name is Maria, and I'm the product owner for B2C chatbots at Nestle. Today I'm going to be talking about several topics. This is the agenda. First, I want to give you an overview and on learnings on the team and share with you some success stories. And then just get deep dive in how do we improve our chatbot's performance, right? So we do several things. So not only the basics on intent classification, but we also are very conscious on the type of analysis that we need to gather. We have a couple of nice to have features, and then we have tested several things to improve our chatbot experience. So just to begin with, and just to provide you with some context, Nestle has a digital hub in Barcelona. So it started in March 2016. And basically the scope was to gather all the B2C and B2E solutions worldwide and offer this from a unique center. So instead of having local agencies developing websites or developing apps or conversational interface, the goal was to share this knowledge and services to all brands and markets worldwide. So basically we're in Barcelona, but our clients are Nestle brands across the globe. And the reason for that was cost efficiency and to share knowledge. We're more than 600 people, and here you can see some data on the diversity regarding female workers, female leaders. The average age is quite young, and we have plenty of nationalities. So just getting into the topic, and inside this digital hub, there's a team that it's IT innovation, and inside this team, there's another team that's called New Generation Technologies, and then the team I'm working in, which is Conversational AI, right? So the team was created in 2016, and we have been gathering some learnings that I think it's interesting to share with you. So we realized that there is a really need to have a UX team that is able to design a conversational flow, not only guided. There's a need to have a strong NLP engine, a good one that it's not just classifying, but classifying things in a good way. There's a need to combine analytics. We saw that a lot of platforms were just relying in some analytics capture from a specific channel, for instance, and they were not able to merge different sources. So that was a pain point for us. There was a need to basically support more than one language, and because we're serving clients from across the globe, we needed to select an LLP that was strong enough. As well, we needed to cover many consumer channels. We're not just talking about Facebook. We talk about maybe Line, Kakao Talk, and many other channels that need to be covered. And then we were looking as well for some agencies that had experience integrating with Nestle systems. So we don't develop in-house, but we needed this expertise. With these learnings, we basically built our own B2C chatbot service. And we followed on a strategy, so the below strategy. We basically built the conversation as a graph. So basically we wanted that the user could jump from one flow to another one easily, from one topic to another one without having to go through all the guided flow. We want to be NLP agnostic. So it is true that we're currently working with Dialogflow and Luis, but we want to have a plug and play service. So if in the future it's another one like Rasa, or if it's IBM, then we want to be able to work independently of the NLP that we choose. We do have a dashboard with several analytics. So not only about user metrics, but how the bot is performing, the survey that we ask to the consumers, everything in just a unique portal. We don't want to go into different sources and different tools. And then a reusable architecture. So basically something that can help markets to benefit from what others have done. And we didn't have to start from the scratch. And I want to share with you a couple of use cases right now. So this first one is Nescafé Dolce Gusto. This was our first chatbot built with this platform that I just mentioned. This is a global chatbot. That means that it has the same structure and integrations for the market that you can see on the screen. And basically, it's helping the user to select machine drinks, coffee capsules, but is also helping the user with some troubleshooting. So for instance, a machine is not working, a machine is leaking, and then it provides as well information about recycling pods, for instance. The good thing here is that if the chatbot is not able to help, it hands over the conversation to a human. So there is an integration actually with Salesforce Live Agent that is actually providing this capability to the consumers. So metrics were not bad in the sense that we had a pretty number of users interacting. Bear in mind that this was Facebook, and the Facebook page was created specifically for the chatbot. The average time was good. And then the bot was able to handle 60% of the conversations, which was good in the sense that because one of the main goals for this chatbot was the ability to automate content. So we were able to do that. Then if we go to another use case, this is recently, so from this year, it's a chatbot in Spain for Nescafé for a promotion that it's called Sueldo para toda la vida. And this was a very successful promotion in the sense that it was able to handle 80% of the conversations, meaning that only 20% were redirected to an agent, and from these conversations, 43% were initiated out of working hours. So that's a pretty successful number. This bot was on the website and on the mobile app, and the number of users was huge as well. The promotion is huge as well. So that's another interesting use case to share with you. And this was just some context. So now if we go into actually the topic of today, which is how do we improve the chatbot's performance? So first of all, we need to start from the basics, and you all know that, right? Basically, we need a good training set. We need the ability to understand what the user wants and predict what they will ask for. So we need a strong NLP engine, which is not rare because you all know that. The thing here is that we need a good training set. So the more data, the better. And this is something that it's a challenge for markets sometimes because they believe that AI can do everything and they don't need to provide data for the chatbot to be trained. Without this training set, without this strong training set, it's very complex to do like a correct classification of these intents. So you need to rely on a strong NLP, but it's not magic. And with this data, you need to train the bot. We all know what happens when you don't have a good NLP, right? So it's a very poor and robotic conversation. Instead of natural conversations, you have guided flows, like the ones that you can see on the screen. This is basically leading to frustration from the consumer. So basically, there is a thin line between a bot and an app, which is chatting versus commands. With this being said, if we go to analytics, we know that most of the technologies are able to classify the chatbot intents, but I mean, this sometimes is not enough, right? So you do have the sentences, you do have the U-turns that you run through the NLP. The NLP is providing you back the set of intents with the probability and the accuracy. It's basically saying if it was classified or if it wasn't classified and to which intent. Is that enough? Like, do we think that accuracy is enough to analyze and visualize the bot performance? To be honest, only a few platforms are allowing you right now to see the correct classification. And this is now the biggest challenge. So identify and reduce the false positives. Here you can see a tool that is called Chatbots from Google as well. So the most typical conversation flow and where users are dropping off from the conversation. So you can see that breaking down the intents, and it's not staying with the first level of classification, which is what most of the tools are doing right now. If some people are basically dropping after a specific intent, that is providing you a lot of context and a lot of information. So basically, it's telling you that either you did not understand what they want, or basically that you don't have the content that they want. So this is very powerful for a bot manager to then retrain and just realize if the scope of the bot is enough or is good enough for the consumers. So selecting a right tool that is able to provide you this correct classification is also key. This is just an example. Chatbots is just an example, but there are many other ones that you can use. If we go to nice to have features, so we do have something that's called, as you know, the A/B testing. So we could actually train the chatbot any new feature that you do. For instance, let's say that you want to try another NLP. So you can do that on the pre-implementation or on the post-launch when you add a new feature. Let's say you want to add a new flow. You present the two models to the consumers. You see which one is performing better, and then you get or you stay with the one that has the better trained NLP. That's something that I don't think it's being used right now a lot, but it's a powerful idea to do. Another nice to have feature is the user feedback. So we do include this a lot in our chatbots. Basically, you can ask after specific flows or after specific intents if the bot was helpful or not, or if we identified the intent in a correct way. If we capture this and we save this data in our dashboard, we basically are able to have more context. So basically, you know if the bot is what the user wants, and if not, understand why. You can also do a follow-up question. So you said it wasn't helpful. Can you tell me why? And with this data, you can see if it's because maybe the bot wasn't identifying the right intent, or maybe because the user is asking for stuff that the bot is not within the scope of the bot. Then it's not a matter of technology. It's a matter of maybe not putting the right content in the conversational interface. Now, if we go to the last topic, is how to improve the chatbot. How do we do that? So we have several techniques. The first one is using artificial utterances. So as any good classifier, the more intent and the more data, the better the performance will be. So basically, from a seed, you automatically create hundreds of sentences, and you upload this to each specific intent. I'm pretty sure that if I ask you how many ways you can order coffee, you would all say different sentences, and that's true. Like there's no unique way. I can say I need coffee. I'm super asleep. I want some caffeine. I ran out of capsules. I want a coffee this morning. There are plenty of ways that you can ask for this. So you can use natural language generation services for that. And you can create hundreds of relevant sentences for each intent, or at least the ones that are more important and that are in a higher risk to not be identified. And as well for the entities and the synonyms. How this will help you? So basically saving time on the pre-implementation phase. And it's also increasing effectiveness in the training and performance phases. So basically, if you already share the data before going live, I'm pretty sure that the time to train the bot after the go live, so the first days, will decrease because you will get the basics. Usually, the 3 first months after going live, a lot of bot owners are spending a huge amount of time just adding basic sentences that no one thought about before. Another thing is topic extraction. So basically, you all know that we do have the default intent, and this is what basically the conversations that the bot hasn't understood, right? So you can either have a person reviewing the millions of conversations, so basically the text, but this is quite tedious for someone to do. Although that's pretty useful. So basically, if you review those conversations and you extract the keywords, you can basically identify what people are talking about, which is, I mean, it's gold. The benefits for that is that you can discover new use cases, you can add new flows, you can add new features, you can even redefine some intents. So we go from a huge text to basically run some topic extraction and identifying the main topics. This is something that we are starting to do right now with our chatbots, and we identify it's pretty useful for brand managers because they don't have time to review the conversations. They basically want you to do that job. And sometimes we do not have the business knowledge. So we share with them the key topics that people are talking about, and then we let them investigate further if they want. Another tool that you can use is called cubox, and there are others right now in the market, but it's basically helping you to understand if the bot is working as expected. So you can use cubox for instance, to confirm if the intents have been designed properly, because most of the challenges and most of the problems with the chatbots right now is that the intents are not well designed. And basically, there's a lot of clashes. You need to redefine it. A utrans is in 3 different intents, and the NLP is basically getting crazy. It can also help you to identify the intents that maybe are too close to each other. If there's an intent that needs more training data, you can also run tests every time you add the utrans, just to make sure that it's not affecting the bot performance. You all know that the chatbot is not like a website that you just add content and nothing happens. It actually has an impact in the performance. And then you can monitor the model in real time. Let's see a couple of examples. So this is from real chatbots that we do have. Every time we add new content and every time we add new utrans, we run tests in cubox to see how this affects the performance. And you can see that this is done per intent and over time. And we basically do that just to avoid that markets are randomly adding content. We ask them to tell us what they want to add, run the cubox test, and then we come back saying, well, you can see that if you add this sentence, it's going to be affecting the performance or not, and then therefore we include it. Another example from cubox is that we actually were able to improve more than 20% the level of confidence and correctness before going live in a specific chatbot. So we realized that there were some intents very close to each other, and we had a confidence level of around 70%. We ran some tests in cubox, and by manually tweaking the intents that we saw that were the most affected, we significantly improved the correctness and confidence before going live. So you can see that from 82 we went to 95, and from 60 to 81. So this was a huge improvement, and also from a market perspective, because we're helping them in a field that is pretty new for them as well. And the last thing I wanted to share is semantic search. So basically, what happens if the NLP classifier is not able to classify or to understand a utrans? So we all know that this goes to the default intent, right? Sometimes we have a plan B or a backup. So we use a list of FAQs that maybe we can find a good match there. So we say, okay, this is a list of intents, these are the flows, but in any case that if consumer asking for some stuff that we want to provide an answer, we have a list of FAQs. The thing is that, are we able to do a good match based on keywords, which is how the Q&A maker works? So we do have actually transformer-based semantic search. And how it works is basically, we do have a set of questions with a set of answers, right? We run these through the semantic search, which basically are transformer-based NLP models. And we see the ones that are closest to each other in the vectorial space. So every time we add a new Q&A or a new FAQ, we're able to identify the one that is the closest one and provide the right answer. And this we work with a huge training data and training set, but this happens and it works as well for new FAQs. So you don't need to go like us, the Q&A maker, manually adding. It goes and selects the one that is closest to with the previous data that the semantic search has. And we just ran some POCs, and we saw that the results were pretty good. So based on some questions from a chatbot from Purina, we realized that the Q&A maker matches weren't very good. And running that through the semantic search, we actually improved around 80%. The predicted results were much better than the Q&A maker. And this is something that it was our latest let's say improvement, and we're going to be applying this to all our chatbots. So this is everything from my side. I just ran through some of the features that we do have and what we do to improve our performance. I know that now I think it's time for some questions. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen.
All right. Great presentation.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we're getting some questions in, and we get them in two different areas, so I'll go back and forth. Let's see. So Brittany asks, can you elaborate on what? On that? What doesn't work well?
What's not working well? Plenty of stuff. I would say our biggest challenge right now is first to tell the market that NLP is not that easy. So getting what the user wants and what the user wants to know is not easy, because if you fail on this step, everything else will fail. So if you don't understand what the user wants, for instance, I want to get promotions on a virtual machine. If you don't get that, then you cannot go to your database to look for promotions, to build the response and deliver that through the chatbot. And the other thing that is not working as, let's say, as expected would be the design of the conversations. I think these are too guided. So I think UX teams right now are very focused on guiding the user, but not making those conversational.
I see. And can you talk a little bit more about what you think that a more ideal solution would be? So it's not as guided, but it still helps users achieve their goals?
Right. So for me, it would be kind of a mix. So most of the chatbots, when I mean guided, it means that you need to go from the main menu, right? And you need to go through all these steps to get into the response that you want. I think there's a mix that needs to be done. So obviously there's a flow I can go through, but if I want to jump, for instance, from let's say I'm looking to buy a machine, and then I'm on this flow. And then I realized that, oh, well, my mom just asked me to buy some coffee, so I'm just going to jump to another flow. It would be ideal that then I can go back to the previous flow, to the step I was, which is looking for a perfect machine.
Right. And that's something that should happen. Like it happens when you're at the coffee, at the coffee.
Right.
What kind of coffee do you want? And you could say, oh, wait, can I get a croissant?
Right. Yeah. That would be ideal. But not only the last thing that you mentioned, but maybe what you just asked this morning. Like at the end is like chatting with a friend. It usually remembers some of the stuff that you said. And it's not that after 24 hours, it just deletes all the conversation. But I don't know if the technology is mature enough yet.
I see. So we got a few more questions coming in. One is, if we have 1,000 plus FAQs, how will it deal with intense or relevant sentences? Is it manual creation? Which is very consuming? And how do you deal with when things fall into more than one category?
Right. So what I tell the market is that ideally FAQ is kind of a plan B. So if the plan B is not there, the bot still needs to work. Meaning that if there's an FAQ that it's super close to an intent, it's not an FAQ. It should go into the flow for that specific intent. Because the way that we set up the chatbots are that it first goes to the NLP. So if there is an intent super close to the NFAQ, it will never go to the FAQ list. Then forget about that list. You should add as many content as possible into the intents. For us, the FAQ is kind of similar to the small talks, right? So for instance, if I ask, what is Nescafé Dolce Gusto? That is not an intent per se. Like this is more, tell me about your brand. And this is what we put on the FAQ list. Like if it's not there, the chatbot will survive.
Got it. So Kwan asks, I'd like to know how Cubox confirms that intents have a good design. Is that an automatic analysis?
What basically is telling you is if intents are very close to each other. So if these are very close to each other, it's telling you that the design is not well done in that sense. So it happened with our first chatbots. They were doing kind of a list of maybe 15 intents, which is nuts for very small use cases. So we're now using cubox to tell the UX team, see, these three intents are very close to each other. So either the data is wrong, or either the three intents want to tell the same stuff. Then it's just one intent. So you can use cubox and say, it's not me, right? There's a tool that says that this is wrong.
Right. And can you share some best practices in coming up with the training data?
Yeah, so using a natural language generation services is a good first option. Like we use that in the very beginning. I would say fine tuning. Fine tuning is key. So, for instance, Dialogflow has is a very strong NLP, but it doesn't know about Nespresso. It doesn't know about an NDG. So, what we do is we ask the call centers and the community managers to share all the conversation that they have had with their consumers. And then from there, we extract basic utterances, and then we do have enough training data to train our chatbots before going live.
Got it. And that, this is one of the themes, I guess, of this event, is that more and more companies we're seeing is that they're using data to design their bots from the get-go. They're not waiting around after the fact. And I think just starting from that could make a really big difference. Because like going down the wrong track will also maybe give you bad data.
Correct. That's very interesting because this happens during the training phase. So you go to the brands and say, well, there are these utterances that do not fit in an intent because there's no content. And the response is, okay, put that on the help intent. And this is not the right answer, right? Because the help intent is when I need help, nor when I don't have any intent. And this is kind of a bad practice in that way.
Okay, so we have a few more questions. So Max asks, how do you track, identify, and reduce the false positive matches?
Can you repeat that?
How do you track, identify, and reduce the false positive matches?
Okay. So we use cubox sometimes, and then we also do have a specific team that does that for us. So we do have in-house in Conversational a couple of AI tech leads that are basically doing these minds. Like I'm not doing that myself, and they are basically telling us from generic reviews what is that is not working. I can ask for more information if they are curious to see how they do that.
Okay, I think you could follow up with Max. Yusuf has a very similar question. I think it kind of hits the same idea. He asks about semantic search. Do you fine tune your transformer model as QA task, or embed your sentences and check them with similarity, for cosine similarity?
Yeah, we don't do fine tuning in semantic search. What I can do is I can share with you an article that we published explaining how we actually use that in our chatbots, and you can read the article. I can put that on the Q&A chat if you want.
Yeah, that would be great. You can share any kind of information like that in the chat, in the Q&A, in the event, along with your information. Yeah, and last question. So
yeah.
I know we're almost out of time. If you have 1 million conversation data utterances, how do you consume it fast for model training data? If you're overwhelmed with data, like how do you guys narrow it down? Because a lot of data could be a problem too.
Yes, that's a very interesting question. So this is something that the UX team is doing in the very beginning. So they stay with the basics, and then what we do is we add this in regular phases. So we don't add this before going live. We keep some of this data, and then we add this regularly, because as you mentioned, if we do that, it can be like overwhelming, and sometimes it can be worse than actually using a lot of data.
Right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Maria. If people want to follow up with you, what's the best way?
Yep. So they can get in touch with me on LinkedIn. So it's just maria.crozas, and they can just send me a message. I will be happy to provide more info. Thanks for having me here.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for coming. We really enjoyed the talk.
Perfect. Bye.
Bye-bye.